Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the One Hood Power Hour. I'm your host, Royce Jones. A lot has been going on since we last spoke last Tuesday, and we're all very excited to be here with you tonight, getting into it all. This news program is meant to give you some updates about what's been going on around Pennsylvania, as well as speaking with people who are in the news so that you can understand how you're impacted and what you can do to make sure your community has what it needs. Now, remember, as always, you can drop some questions to our guests at any time. Just go ahead and drop them in the comment section wherever you are streaming this, and we'll do our best to get to those. So today, news broke that local university students and recent graduates have had their student visas revoked, you guys. This comes on the heels of other international students being taken by ICE or being forced to self-deport. Now, in a letter, CMU said the following. They said, quote, "As has happened at other institutions, we learned late last week that the student visas of 2 current CMU students and 5 recent graduates had been revoked, and their records in the Student and Exchange Visitor Information System had been terminated. These incidents understandably raised wider concerns for many in our community, and we take seriously our continued responsibility to ensure that our community is equipped with the information they need to navigate these uncertain times." That statement coming from a CMU admin earlier today. So we want to focus on what all of this means for our local community and how they're able to support those who are being impacted right now. First of all, our first guest is the son of 2 immigrants, a community defense organizer at Casa San Jose, working to protect the immigrant community here in southwestern Pennsylvania, and has experience working in electoral politics and organizing. Let's everybody welcome Jaime Martinez to the conversation this evening. Hey, Jaime.
Hey, what's up? How are you? Good to see you.
All right. How are you?
I'm good. It's a sunny day and we're hard at work. So.
Yes. Well, I know that you're always working, and Casa San Jose always has its hands full. Will you talk to us a little bit about the work that you all do there?
Yeah, absolutely. And before we start, just thank you for having us and thank you for platforming us to be able to talk to the community about what's happening. Casa San Jose was founded in 2013 as an outreach of the Sisters of St. Joseph out in Baden, Pennsylvania, as a way to help the immigrant community in southwestern Pennsylvania. Over time, we've expanded. We have a lot more capacity and reach now, and we are a welcome and resource center. We have a full team of case managers ready to help with all sorts of solutions to problems that people, and especially the Latino community, but within the immigrant community, have. And we also have our organization, community organizing and advocacy program, which is kind of where I live, where we do our best to advocate for the Latino community, provide for self-sufficiency and instill self-sufficiency and leadership skills in our community, make sure that we can get to a place where we're able to advocate for ourselves.
So with all of that said, can you tell us what your reaction was whenever you heard the news today about these 2 CMU students? Like, what were your initial thoughts with this?
Yeah, well, it's terrifying, right? It seems like institution after institution is folding, and more and more people are being put at risk, especially for the Latino community. We're kind of used to seeing our community targeted when it comes to deportations and detentions with ICE. But to see that spread to other communities and to students, of which I was recently part of that population, it's scary. And I feel just as much grief and pain as if it were to be in, a Latino family. It's terrifying. And there's also, folks aren't really used to it, right? What does an international student know about ICE detentions and ICE deportation? So there's a new community at risk, and we stand in total solidarity, and we're here to help.
Yeah, and so when something like this happens, do you know what those steps look like if you are one of these students or graduates? I mean, do you have to immediately begin the process of self-deporting? I mean, what happens whenever are you notified? Like what is this process?
Sure. So usually the State Department will let the person know that their visa has been revoked, and they'll give them some sort of reason. As we've seen, as of recent, the federal government may or may not be doing that. Uh,
Hmm.
uh, it's just kind of like the wild, wild west out here nowadays. And so, yeah, if your visa has been revoked, you're now at risk for being detained by ICE, by potentially being deported. Um, and so it poses like a huge threat to people and their livelihood and just their lives being uprooted. But yeah, they're at risk, and they're at risk of immediate detention and deportation. We don't know exactly what that looks like because ICE doesn't share much information. So we know things around the margins, but we can't give you an exact kind of timeline of how this works.
Yeah, so that definitely has to probably add to the concern for a lot of people because you don't know if you're going to have time to plan or if it's just you're going to be whisked away.
Correct.
Have you had a lot of people reaching out at Casa San Jose about this issue in particular?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We are very privileged and lucky to have been able to build a lot of infrastructure over the past few months to support, with the anticipation of, yeah, things are going to get worse for immigrants in this country as more resource and more planning on the government's end takes shape. So we've been doing our best to anticipate that and be proactive in meeting people where they're at. When folks reach out to us, we already present them kind of solutions to get involved and to help. Yeah, so we're definitely getting a lot more incoming fire from
Yeah.
folks who want help. We're ready and we're here to help.
Yeah. Are you able to share just some of the things that you have prepared? Or is it too broad? I'm sure a lot of it's probably case by case in some scenarios.
Sure, yeah. So the most important thing that folks can do right now is seek counsel, seek an immigration
Hmm.
attorney. And I know that here in Pittsburgh we're a bit starved of immigration counsel, but that's a really important key because, as you said, every case is different. Everybody's situation looks different and may have different solutions, right? But broadly speaking, super important for everybody to develop a safety plan. If you're detained, who's going to pay your mortgage? Who's going to pay the rent? Who is going to pay for your cell phone bill? Who's going to pay for your car? All of these scenarios are real, and a lot of people don't consider them until they're the ones sitting in the back of a van driven by ICE agents, right? So a power of attorney form is something we've been holding legal clinics where we have notaries and attorneys come in, explain these forms to folks, get them filled out, so that in the case that they're in detention, somebody else will have the power to financially make decisions on behalf of the person. On top of that, good to set aside money if you have it for an immigration bond potentially, right?
Hmm.
Immigration bonds run anywhere from like $1,000 to $10,000 from what we know. That's not a general. That's a very general number, but it can go up or down depending on the situation. And so if you have those savings, putting them apart and putting them in a place where again somebody can access them through power of attorney. And then if you have children or minors, super important to have like a temporary guardianship form, especially if your kids were born here in the US, right? Getting them passports as well, super important. So we've been doing our best to let the community know that they need to be proactive in creating a safety plan. And then we've also set up a pretty robust rapid response network. So we've trained folks from all different kinds of abilities, workplaces, lifestyles, ages, of all kinds of people, right? We've brought them together. We've trained them to be legal observers, and they are our eyes and ears. When we get a call that ICE is somewhere, we can have somebody within 20 minutes responding to a situation, taking down information, documenting absolutely everything, and starting to track and locate detained individuals. So we have a pretty robust network, and we need more and more people to join. And so you don't have to be at risk. We've been telling folks that it's time to be a good neighbor, right? This city prides itself on Fred Rogers and the message that he instilled in us as kids. And we're, especially in a time like right now, calling on everybody to step up and be a good neighbor for our immigrant community that so desperately needs them.
Yeah, and you mentioned organizing an immigration bond. Could you share more about the importance of that and what that does and why that's valuable to people?
Yeah. So an immigration bond. So when folks get detained, they'll end up at a detention center, most likely 3 hours away from here. It's a place called Mo Shannon Valley Processing Center. It used to be a federal private prison, and then President Biden signed an executive order banning the renewal of that contract and other contracts with private federal prisons. So they reskinned it as an ICE detention center. Same building, just different use. It's privately managed. So ICE pays this prison group $3 million a month as a base pay on top of a per head daily rate. So it's a complete racketeering of the American taxpayer, right? There are folks in there who do not have criminal records, who have ongoing asylum processes, meaning that they're afraid to return to their country. And they're just sitting there for a civil violation, right? Crossing the border is not a criminal charge, right? It's the same kind of violation as reckless driving is, right? Or getting a traffic ticket. It's a civil violation. And they're just being held there, right? To the profit of private shareholders for prisons. That being said, once they're in this detention center, usually best when they have an attorney, that attorney can request a bond hearing. That's a certain amount of money that folks can pay to be able to exit the facility. And so they'll be able to handle the rest of their court proceedings, which is immigration court, which is separate from civil and criminal court, right? It's a completely different system. They'll be able to deal with all of that without having to sit in that detention center. So there are bond funds across the country. There are bond funds here in Pittsburgh. Casa San Jose runs like a bond fund program as well. But we're telling folks like you have to be prepared for that sort of thing. Yeah.
How would you say you're seeing people push back right now? I know there's a lot of planning on that end, but are you seeing a lot of people sort of speaking out and fighting back against these ICE crackdowns? And I mean, we've seen really like scary videos from across the country of people just being snatched off the street, and you know, it's alarming, and so it's evoked a big response, I think, online. But are you personally seeing that here in Pittsburgh, where people are speaking out against this and fighting back?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like to think that here, you know, in the work that we do, we're building a city of good neighbors. We're in the fight for human dignity. And what we've seen, especially on behalf of ICE, is a dehumanization of the person. I mean, there are folks showing up in the dead of night to single family homes, families with small children, wearing hoods and masks. I mean, there was one situation that I can think of off the top of my head, 17 agents surrounding a home, all armed, and then vanishing people. That's the kind of situation that we're in right now. It's very scary. People plead with the officers. They say, I have a lawyer. Like, I'm not fleeing from you. Like, I have an ongoing court process with my immigration court. Why are you taking my husband? Why are you taking my spouse? And they understand Spanish, but they'll refuse to speak it back, or they'll speak in a very broken language, and they will return and they'll say, we are police and we have to arrest them for immigration. And that's all of the explanation that people get. This is not okay. This is not American. This does not fulfill our American promise. And so justifiably, people are outraged. What are they doing? I mean, we've seen people marching in the streets. We have seen protests taking place across the country, right, that are fed up with the way that our government has been acting. And we've been a part of that. We've been there as well. I had the chance to speak at a protest in Oakland this past weekend, and there will be more and more and more. But a lot of folks come to us and they say, hey, I want to help somehow, right? Everybody is so angry. Everyone is so outraged, annoyed, frustrated, feeling powerless. And we are doing our best to create an outlet for folks to channel that anger into purpose. And the best way that folks can do that is by joining our rapid response network. It is low effort and very, very high impact. And then we also accompany folks to court. A lot of folks are getting vanished at courthouses, in the parking lots. We're accompanying folks even to the grocery store. We know that ICE has been at Walmart, walking around in plain clothes, calling out random names and seeing who they can get.
Wow.
It's very scary. It's a very terrifying time, but we're doing our best to create risk mitigation tools for the community, making sure everyone knows how they should be making decisions in their life based on truth and verifiable information, because no one deserves to live in fear. And we're doing our best to get every single person in this county and in this region to step up and do something. We often talk about defining moments in each generation. The civil rights movement, the gay rights movement, right? The women's rights movement, women's suffrage, even before then, the threat of Nazism and the rise of fascism in the world. And I always have questions when I meet people from that time saying, well, what was it like to live through something like that? They're going to ask the same thing about us right now. And it's important for us to be able to speak to not only what we saw, but what we did. So we're putting out that call to action to everybody here in the county and beyond.
Yeah. And also, is there any way, by the way, to know if you're being targeted, especially if you're a student, or a graduate? Is there any way, if you were to log on to a federal website or anything to see that like your visa is under review or anything? Or is it just you wake up one day and you get an email and it's saying, hey, this is what's going on?
So it's kind of all of the above. I guess you can be proactive, but for most folks, you never really know why you would be under review, right?
Yeah.
Unless you've been caught with like a DUI or some sort of criminal charge, and then there's some risk of your visa being at risk, right? But what we're seeing now, it seems to be completely arbitrary, and folks are just getting something sent to them. I think it's important, if you're like an international student or something, to check in with your local consulate. Your consulate is a huge advocate for you, or your embassy, right? And asking them about the status of your visa and what you can do. Important to check in with your Office of International Education at your school. They should have information on that as well. And then, as I said, just talking to an attorney and looking for resource in this time is pretty important.
Do you think this is, I don't know if you know what every university, like international affairs office looks like, but do you think that universities are prepared, that those like international student offices are equipped? Like, I just am thinking back to, when I was in school, I feel like the office was super small, but we had a pretty like wide variety of international students, from what I can remember. And I'm just like, with all of this going on, like, do they need to be bringing in extra help? Like, are they ready to address these issues?
I'm not going to speak on behalf of those offices because I don't work in them, right? But broadly speaking, I can imagine that no, I don't think anyone is prepared for how quickly this is moving, how threatening the situation has become. I mean, it feels like every 3 days, like, we get another more shocking headline in the news that feels all the more terrifying. So, I couldn't really tell you, but it's always good to check in. And I'm sure that institutions are very worried about it, especially places like Carnegie Mellon and Pitt that have a lot of international students. And they're doing their best, and I'm sure they can do more. And all of those groups asking them to do more are doing a very good thing. But I'm sure that they're scoping out their options at this point.
Yeah. And about your rapid response network, how can people get involved in that? And what does that look like? Have you seen an influx of people already saying, well, I need to be involved with you, and we need to address this?
Absolutely. We actually have a backlog of applications that we're reviewing, and so we're getting to it step by step, and that's where I'm headed to after I hop off this. But we have more than 100 people that have said, I want to do something. And I want to get involved in our rapid response team. And that number grows each and every day. And so we've had all of our volunteers. We take them through the training. We give them a very comprehensive look of what the journey of an immigrant is from detention to potential deportation or release from the detention center, where they fit into that. And at the same time, we're being very intentional in building community.
Yeah.
There is this sense right now that we all feel so isolated, so helpless. But there's a lot of good people in this city and in this county and in this region that are willing to do something. And so we're doing our best to pull these people together, have folks meet new friends, and build power through community. And I know that One Hood knows all about that. So we look to you all as an example, and we're trying to follow in your footsteps. But we're doing our best to bring people together. We have on-call teams that rotate. We can get into the details, but instead of that, I'm just going to send in our chat the way that you can get involved. I'm gonna join the you know what, I'm not going to join the chat, somebody else will send it. But if you go to
We'll
go to casasanjose.org/volunteering, fill out our very short Google form. Someone will be in touch with you. We'll get you where you need to be. But now is the time to do something. And the way that we've set this up is very intentional. We wanted to embody the ethos of many hands make light work. So the more folks get involved, the easier it will be for everybody. The less time you will have, the less time you will need to be like going around and doing stuff, and the more impact you'll have. So hoping that we can get folks involved.
We got that posted in the comments for everybody watching. Shout out to Nicole, who is always on it with the links in the chat. You also, just one last thing, for people who, maybe they want to get involved, but, sometimes, I don't know, maybe they're like, I can't go through the process of filling this out, or I, want to be involved, but not so hands-on or directly. Is there things that people can do where maybe they just don't feel comfortable or confident enough in themselves to be so direct with it, that they can do, if they're like, if they see ice somewhere, maybe they can post it, or like, how can people do things like that where they can be on the fringe, but like, it's not a whole thing? Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. So everyone who's watching or who will be watching this, take out your phone. We have a 24/7 ICE Watch hotline that we need you to have saved as a contact in your phone. If you hear a report or a rumor that ICE is somewhere, if you have confirmed that ICE was at your workplace or at the parking lot, or that a friend told you that something happened, we want to hear it all. And we need your report in order for our system to work. So if you were to call 412-736-7167, you can call that number 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Someone will respond, and depending on the way that we screen your call, we'll dispatch somebody out, and then we'll make sure we get that documented. Broadly speaking, you do not have to talk to ICE. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to ask what they're doing there. You have the right to ask them for their full name and badge number. These are all things that are incredibly important when we go and respond. So I'm going to give you that number again, 412-736-7167. That's the ICE 24/7 ICE hotline that Casa San Jose runs. And we are depending on you all as good neighbors to step up and make those calls to us when you see something.
All right, Jaime, thank you so much for sharing all of your expertise and feedback on this tonight. Is there anything that is really important that you wanted to get to our viewers that we didn't address tonight?
Yeah, I mean, just going back to this again, there is so much reason to despair right now. There's so much vitriol. There's so much polarization. It can feel like the person across the street is in a completely different universe than us, and it's impossible to talk to them. But the antidote to that is relationship. It's community. So have those hard conversations. Have those conversations at your kitchen table with the uncle who just will never budge, within the tolerance that you have. These are the conversations that are so critical to have at this moment in time. And we need to wake people up to the truth of the situations that are taking place in the country today. So relationship, let's step up for each other. Let's pop the bubbles of ego and selfishness that we surround ourselves in all too frequently. And let's build power through community together. Let's win this.
I love it. And like you said, being better neighbors to each other, because that's what Pittsburgh is all about. We're supposed to be good neighbors.
Right.
Thank you. I know you have backlogged volunteer processing to go do, so we'll let you do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, and to everybody
Thank
watching.
you.
And I look forward to keeping in touch.
Likewise. Thanks, Jaime.
Thank you, guys.
Bye. So, and Jaime actually touched on this. This past Saturday, thousands of people from across the Pittsburgh area did come out to rally for democracy and protest the Trump administration's dismantling of our institutions. One such speech actually discussed what is happening right now and how we can come together and support each other. Let's take a listen.
Here in Pittsburgh. And I know Monica was coming to speak to you today and she can't make it from Casa San Jose. So I want to talk about the immigrant community that is under attack. I want to talk about how ICE is on our campuses. I want to talk about how our Ukrainian neighbors are getting alerts telling them that they have to self-deport. No! I want to say, they didn't come for me tonight, they'll come for you in the morning. Yeah. All of our liberation is connected. Yeah. Our safety is in each other. Yeah. Our freedom is in each other. Yeah. In order for all of us to make sure we can make it through the next day, we have to stand up and fight back for each other. Yeah! We cannot pick and choose. So when Dina has a call out, all of you need to show up and be there. Yeah! When our Muslim neighbors are under attack, all of you need to show up and be there. Yeah! When our disabled community is under attack, everyone needs to show up and be there. Yeah! When our Jewish community is under attack, everyone needs to show up. Yeah! When our Black community is under attack, everyone needs to show up. Yeah! When our Palestinian community is under attack, everyone needs to show up. Yeah! We have to show up protesters. Each and every one of our communities is under attack. So each and every one of us must come together. Yeah. We must learn to live together. Yeah. So show up for each other. This is what solidarity looks like. This is what being in community looks like. Show up, show out, stand up, fight back, and don't throw anyone away. Thank you. Yeah.
Speaking there, and you guys, I just want to give you a reminder that we did go ahead and drop the links to, well, the one link to the to volunteer with Casa San Jose. That link is in our comments section, as well as their ICE hotline number as well, for you guys to go ahead and put in your phone. Taking a bit of a pivot now, our next guest, our second and final guest, is the Allegheny County Political Director for Straight Ahead, a sister organization to the Abolitionist Law Center that focuses on political education, community organizing, and legislation to reduce harm and end mass incarceration. Everybody, let's welcome Tanisha Long to the conversation. Hey, Tanisha.
Hi, how are you?
How are you?
I'm good. It's been a while.
I know. It's good to see you. First of all, would you tell us a little bit about Straight Ahead and what you all have going on there?
So we are a 501c4 that works to engage with legislation, politicians. We community organize with the main goal of ending mass incarceration, ending things like solitary confinement, changing the way the laws work so that we can get more of our people home. We do a lot of work with the courts. That's kind of where we tend to engage the most. And we do this work statewide.
Okay. And from your experience in that line of work, what do you think people should know about judges?
I think that a lot of times people don't think about judges until they're in front of one. Mm-hmm. So they don't understand that in Allegheny County, we have like 4 different types of court: family court, orphans court, criminal court, and civil court. And at some point, most people are going to end up in one of those courts at some point in their life. And judges, I don't want to say they're the final stop, but they have a lot of say in how that goes for you. You have attorneys and you have lawyers and you have legislators who do a lot of work, but a lot of it comes down to judges. And when we're looking at a lot of the stuff Trump's doing right now, a lot of that's coming down to, are the judges going to stand up and stop this person? And we see that in our everyday lives. We see that when it comes to things like the Allegheny County Jail, where the population continues to rise. We see that they're the people making the decisions as to who gets to come home, who gets to be free, how the law is being interpreted. So judges are hugely important when it comes to like things we don't even think of.
Yeah, and so when elections get involved, then what would your perspective be on just the importance of voting in those elections for judges?
Pennsylvania is one of those weird states where your judges usually aren't appointed. They're usually elected, which gives voters a lot of power in deciding how they want the judiciary to act. So a lot of times people will ask, like, well, it's just the magistrate, it's just common pleas. Why does it matter that much? In the court of common pleas, these judges are in there for at least 10 years. Mm-hmm. And my job at the Abolitionist Law Center and my job at Straight Ahead often involves working against judges who don't work for the people or who have harmful practices. We had one judge, Judge Mariani, who, we had to put in 70 plus judicial complaints to get rid of him. We have judges who, are operating with a lot of older theory and practices that don't exactly speak to what we need and how we've evolved as a people and what we want to see. And we have a lot of harmful practices that still play out in our court and in courts people don't think of, like family court and juvenile court. And when we're talking about things like ending mass incarceration, that's where your judges are going to come into play.
Do you think, do judges campaign as hard as other lawmakers or politicians would typically, or do you think, are they pretty even?
So it is weird when a judge campaigns, right? Because you're supposed to be like this non-political, I'm just here for the law and that's it. Like, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican. I'm just a person who's nonpartisan and I'm going to stick to the law. But judges campaign. Judges definitely campaign. You will see, road signs, you will see mailers out for judges, and that's okay. But what we don't want is where it becomes a partisan effort. Mm-hmm. So when we look for a judge, like when we look for what we want in a judge, we look for qualities. Democrat or Republican, we want to know what your values are. Yeah. We want to understand how you interpret the law. We want to understand how you interpret, your position and your place in deciding some of these larger issues. And that's how a judge should be campaigning. They should be campaigning on their values and what they're going to bring to the bench.
I was going to say, because, I don't tend to see, too many like advertisements or things like that. It doesn't seem like they go as hard in these like judicial elections. But yeah, I don't even know where I would begin to look for information about some of those things. I mean, is that a part of some of your work at Straight Ahead? Absolutely. Political education is a big part of our job. And honestly, I'm one of those people who gets freaked out when I see lawyers with billboards. I'm like, why are you selling you to me? So when it comes to and campaigning, you're not going to see it as much, hopefully. I'm a big person who believes there's too much money in politics to begin with. But a lot of the judges that that are a lot of people who are running right now are already magistrates, or they've already done work in court, or they all have to have a law degree. So we've heard of a lot of these people before, and we've gotten to witness a lot of the things that they do in the courtroom. And that's what should be informing the public, but the public doesn't really sit in a courtroom all day like I tend to do. So you kind of have to rely on organizations who are value aligned to kind of give you some of that guidance and direction. With us, we did we teamed up with so many other orgs, One Hood Power, Unite, Working Families Party, 1PA, PA United, APA, to come up with what we consider a slate of judges who have those justice-minded principles. And we kind of have to use our voices to get people out to the polls and make them understand how important these judicial races are and who they really need to look to when it comes time to vote. So how do people, specifically voters, get involved in supporting that slate of judges?
So there's when it comes to supporting the slate of 8, you can donate to judges' individual campaigns, which feels like a weird thing, right? A judge isn't going to ask you for money, but you can donate to the campaign, to the slate. You can come to some of our events. You can share information about the slate of 8. A lot of people don't know it's out there, and that's kind of an important thing. We're all willing to engage and educate on the judges, but you actually got to get out and meet these people. If they're having events, come out and meet these judges. We have a progressive canvas launch coming up, and that's going to be this Sunday. I'm going to double check that because I might a little bit. No, it's a Sunday. It's going to be this Sunday, and we're going to have a lot of what we consider to be progressive-minded candidates, and that'll be the judges that you see on these slates. We did a lot of work interviewing all of these judges for hours. I'm not gonna lie, it took a long time. But we did a lot of work interviewing these judges and asking hard questions to make sure that they really embody the principles that we live by.
Yeah.
So we put time into this slate. There was a lot of work, and I know they were tired of hearing from us. Hey, we have a few more questions. We look at what other organizations are endorsing them. Are they value aligned? If you're already a magistrate, one of the judges on our slate, Craig Stevens, was actually my magistrate at one point because I was just around riding dirty with no license for quite some time, and I got a sense of how he rules, and that was with empathy and doing things in a community-minded way, so I wasn't buried in fines and I was able to get my license back.
Yeah,
you look at people like Lauren Leachy, who's on the slate, and she's a public defender, and she started an immigrant program in the public defender's office. There are judges on this slate. There are judges and lawyers on this slate who have done amazing things already, and we need everybody to know about them. I want to go in court.
Right. And, so you also mentioned too, that not every judge, of course, that you encountered has been positive, and having to file 70 judicial complaints to get them gone. What are some of the issues that you experience, or that people rather experience here in Allegheny County when it comes to judges that would have Tanisha Long filing some complaints to get you gone?
Well, like it's hard to get me to complain to begin with, but no, I'm joking. The things we've seen a lot of like racially coded language coming from the bench. We've seen a lot of unfair sentencing. We've seen people who, are not being properly represented in court, and the judges, in a way violating their rights. We had, one judge, Judge Tranquilli from years ago, who said blatantly racist things and, stepped down from the bench. We have judges who will not like lift probation detainers and are contributing to the mass incarceration in the Allegheny County Jail. There's a lot of things that we need to change. And, hopefully when you bring in 8 new judges with different ideology and different approaches and different understandings of what justice looks like, you can kind of shift the narrative and change the attitude in the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas. But that's not going to happen if we don't get some new people in there.
Yeah, especially the people who, have essentially been victims of some of the things that you just spoke about. Those are the people who also need to definitely be voting in, elections like this. How would you get them out to vote?
So we do a lot of things. Like tomorrow morning, I'm going to be inside the ACJ registering people to vote. Maybe we can vote ourselves out. I don't know. But it is having these one-on-one conversations. Like I'm, in the streets every day telling people like, you're upset about the judge you had, but where were you at in the last election?
Mm-hmm.
Like, did you vote for somebody different? Because once the judge is in there, that's 10 years.
It's a long time.
That's a long time. And you have a huge impact on people's lives in those 10 years. And I think a lot of people tend to sit out these primaries because they're like, well, I'll just wait for the bigger election. It's too late. It's too late by then. Mm-hmm. Especially in a county like Allegheny County, where it's pretty Democratic leading. And even though judges are not partisan, I think there, is partisan ideology that comes into play there, where people who are more progressive are more likely to get that nod. So, if you're already picking who's gonna get it, then you're done.
Yeah, and with Straight Ahead, so you mentioned you share a lot of this information. You guys are constantly out, engaging with people. How can people find you? How can people get in contact with you and get access to some of this information so they can make an educated choice whenever they're voting? Yeah,
when it comes to political stuff and reaching me Straight Ahead, our website is probably the easiest way. You would contact us, info@straightahead.org. You also can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Twitter, but we're trying to transition off there because, like Elon Musk. So we're not on Blue Sky yet. We are on Facebook. Those are some ways to reach out. Usually the person you're going to be talking to is me if you're reaching out from Pittsburgh, but we're also in Philly as well. So you might end up talking to Salim, which is cool.
Wow. Yeah. Is it, so are there any differences between like your, in terms of what you guys see, issue wise, Philly versus Pittsburgh? What are some of those similarities or differences?
Weird. So like in Allegheny County, the judges, like the judicial races are a lot heavier than they are in Philly. Like it's a lot more impactful. I think maybe it's because a lot of our organizing is around the judiciary and we've made it such a big deal and put it on people's radar in that way. But in Philly, like their big race right now is the DA race, and trying to keep Larry Krasner in office, which we absolutely should vote for Krasner, is my opinion. But in Allegheny County, a lot more of our resources are being spent on these judicial races than in Philly.
Wow. Okay. Was there anything that you wanted to share that we didn't talk about?
I would say, so when it comes to like the work of, freeing people and getting people out of the Allegheny County Jail, a lot of people are in there pre-trial. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people in that jail have not been found guilty yet. And a lot of the reason that they are in there for reasons such as probation detainers, that's a big driving force behind mass incarceration in our jail. And that's something that judges in the criminal court have a direct say and impact over. So if we want to talk about things like, decreasing the numbers at the Allegheny County Jail, decreasing the number of people who are dying in that jail, we do need to look towards the bench, and we need to look how judges are using their discretion. Judicial discretion plays a huge role in a lot of these issues, and that's why we are dead set on picking people who have good, strong values. Like that's where it's at. Like,
yeah,
I think like I get jaded sometimes because I'm in the courthouse so often, where I'm just like, maybe all the judges are bad, but I don't believe that all the judges are bad. I think we actually have some really great judges on the bench right now. Tiffany Sizemore, Chelsea Wagner, that's just two that come off the Pat Sweeney. And I think when we get jaded, we have to remember that we did the work to replace some of these judges we didn't, necessarily like or agree with. The slate of 8 from 2021 was successful. There's 5 women were put on the bench because of that slate of 8. I think 5 out of 8 when you're trying to elect judges is pretty good. And we're hoping to repeat that success with this slate.
Nice. Oh, real quick, before we go, would you plug that event you said you guys will be at with the slate of 8?
Yes. It is a progressive canvas launch. There will be progressive candidates, people who share your values. We're going to be kicking off for the Justice Slate at Westinghouse Park. That is Sunday, not Saturday. Sunday, April 13th at 1 p.m.
All right. Perfect. Thank you, Tanisha, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, see you soon. All right, you guys. Well, we want to thank all of our guests for joining us tonight. We hope that you've learned something this evening. And of course, we always look forward to hearing what you have to say. One Hood Power, by the way, focuses on building power by reaching out to our communities who have been traditionally excluded, forgotten, and under-resourced. While we engage all voters, we specifically focus on the policies and platforms to improve the quality of life for our Black, people of the global majority, disabled, queer, youth, immigrant, and Muslim communities. Today, we talked about policies that impact people's lives, and the one way that we as people are always able to make an impact is through our vote. And so, as many of you know, there's a special election happening in March. We just came up on that, as well as a primary election happening on May 20th. So please make sure that you are registered to vote and that your registration is updated and current. And you can also go to a link that we'll post in our comment section here to update your registration as well. That is it for this evening. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday for the One Hood Power Hour. I'm your host, Royce Jones. Have a great week.
Hey everyone, it's Miracle, host of Brunch with the Black Men.
These people intend to kill me, keep me in prison.
I am so happy to announce we have season 2 of Brunch with the Black Men.
And I could never understand why my heart would race and my hands would get sweaty.
So make sure you join us as we go on this journey with Black men as they heal themselves, talking about their own journey as we eat to feed our souls.
All of my brothers have been in jail, and 3 of them have been in prison. You know what I'm saying? Of course, I've been in jail as well.
Join us for season 2 of Brunch with the Black Men.